Hello and welcome to the first podcast of 2024. My name is Sid, and I'm here with the two other Hacketeers, Jose and Josh. And on this episode, we wanted to do a 2023 year in review, reviewing what we've talked about on this podcast, some stories and some lessons learned. And yeah, we're just going to do a quick year in review podcast, excuse me. And so with that, Josh, go ahead and kick us off with your thoughts on the past year and all that we've talked about in cybersecurity.
I think it was a pretty good year for cybersecurity, but definitely a very, very eventful year. As you know, and as a lot of our listeners hopefully know, we had dealt with a lot of movement in the NIST CMMC sphere, with the draft of revision 3 coming out, some movement publications on the CMMC guidance, even some new DFARs. So definitely, the government contracting, national defense, cybersecurity ecosystems moving a lot. I just want to touch in, we've got our NIST revision 2 chapter season. I'm not sure quite what it's called that we've been going through. Hopefully we'll be finishing that up in the next couple months, and that'll put that, along with 2023, in the rearview mirror as we gear up for revision 3. Jose?
We were on risk management, just in case you were wondering. That's the last episode that we reviewed.
Risk management.
Risk management, one of my favorites.
Yeah, I think 2023 really was the year of risk. That was the year that, I know we talked about it on the podcast a lot, but that was the year that everyone I was listening to finally woke up to this idea of risk, that you've got to focus on what's important, identify your biggest risks, and that's where you got to spend your resources. Even just today, I was in a meeting with some upper management, and the legal counsel even was talking about risk. And can we avoid this risk? Can we accept this risk? This is our biggest risk. This is what we've got to protect. And I was like, wow, this is really, really getting out there.
And what was their most, the thing they wanted protected from the most? What was their most important risk
Reputation.
factor?
Reputation. Yeah. Which
you always think of, risk avoidance starting at, hardware, computers, someone doing something that they weren't supposed to do internally or externally. But, reputation goes a long way, right? And so if, you lose that, then you're kind of in trouble. It isn't just your internal, it isn't just the people that work for you and the people you're working for, but it's the entire company's problem at that point. And not just in the now, but in the future. So that was their most important aspect in the meeting we were talking in today.
Yeah, you think about it, and we talked about this, a lot last year. Just to throw a highlight on it again, though, is this idea that your biggest asset really is your company's reputation. And something that just occurred to me, a lot of times people think about a business reputation, they're like, oh, this company's reputation for a good product, they have a reputation for good service, good customer service, whatever it might be. But really, it's trustworthiness. It's how much people are willing to trust you with their business, with their data, with their money, right? And when you lose reputation, you're losing customers.
Yep. Yeah, you basically, you're going down a road that not only are you going to suffer the immediate issues, but you're going to suffer future problems as well with trying to build your business and grow it and ensuring that people trust doing business with you. And I think we hit upon that this past year. We talked about third-party contracts and vendors, businesses making sure that they're working with someone they can trust and that's somebody that works within their ecosystem when it comes to security and making sure that they are doing their best to keep your data and system safe.
I think something to highlight, something that I've experienced with trying to talk to anyone about cybersecurity incidents and the impact it has on your company's reputation. To take it out of the cybersecurity realm, when you have a major incident happen to your company, this is, I don't know if I'm cherry picking or what you want to call it. Just recently, as of the recording of this podcast, Alaska Airlines had an incident, a major incident on one of their flights where a door blew off at 16,000 feet. And,
No, I didn't mean to laugh.
Yeah. Luckily,
nobody got hurt. That's great.
Nobody got hurt. We're knocking on a lot of wood. You're gonna hear me knocking on wood right now. No one got hurt. Everybody got landed safely. Yada yada yada.
They did find believe it or not, and I hate to cut you off on this, Sid, but this is really pertinent information.
Let's see if you were going to say what I was going to say.
Did you know that they have found 2 cellular phones that blew out of that door intact and alive?
Yeah, dude, the screens weren't even cracked.
That's incredible.
See,
Nothing.
Now you talk about reputation though. If they haven't published, what the manufacturer was for that cell phone case, but if I was a cell phone case manufacturer, I'd be trying to find out if it was my case that protected those phones. That's reputational gold right there. Our phone survives 16,000 feet. It'll survive when you drop it off your counter.
Did you see a picture of one of them?
I did.
Dude,
it wasn't
wrong with it.
No, the only thing that I thought was hilarious was that it wasn't locked. It was somehow in like a set to never lock.
Come on, man. Oh man.
So they were able to just go into it. I thought that was interesting. But
yeah,
and that's a perfect example, Sid, because that's not, we spend a lot of time in the cyber realm. We talk about IT a lot because IT is so important to businesses. IT is such a large threat landscape, but it really isn't the entirety of your threat landscape, particularly when you're looking at reputational harm, reputational risk. You've got to have...
Josh, real quick, the conclusion, the reason I even brought it up is, between all of us here, being in the Northeast, I don't know if we really have the opportunity to fly Alaska Airlines very much, but I think anybody would be hesitant to fly that airline in the near future. And in terms of the stock market, they took an 8% hit pretty immediately in terms of in terms of their stock value.
Did Alaska Air stocks go down? Because I only saw the airline or the airplane manufacturer taking the hit. That was their reputation, not Alaska Airlines, that was taking the hit.
I apologize if I have bad info, but someone took a hit for something in that realm, right? And all I'm trying to do is relate it back to the idea that an incident on your hands can have a major impact. Not, because of your reputation, it'll have that financial impact as well.
Yeah, it all correlates with one another. You're not just taking it. You're taking it in multiple negative ways. You're getting hit from the front side because you're losing tons of money, and people are no longer going to trust your airline because your doors fall off. And secondly, as you move forward in the future, people aren't going to trust that your doors are going to stay on. So it's you make a perfect point, both of you guys. I mean, this is a perfect example of what happens when your reputation is hit. But on the flip side, as we've talked about, they better find out who those phone covers are made by, because they're going to make a ton of money.
Yep. No, I just looked.
16,000 feet, man.
16,000 feet. So, Sid, it's a bit of a mix.
How fast is that thing coming down?
That's probably terminal velocity for a cell phone. It's probably pretty close. So I looked it up. We're talking about reputational harm right now, right? So this Alaska Air, they're sitting there. They got no control over this, right? So Sid, you're right. Their stock dropped. Goes off a cliff when the market opened yesterday, Monday morning. It's just a straight line. It drops close to $2, which is probably about 8%.
Oh,
but then it goes right back up. They're back up to where they had been trading by lunch. Whereas I think Boeing, because they're the ones that made the plane, I think they're the ones with the bigger hit. See if I can find them. Of course, the market's open right now, so all the prices are changing as I look at these things.
the ticker's going, man.
The ticker's going
the whole day. But
yeah, so this this is the risk. So Boeing, same thing. Market opens on Monday. They dropped from a close of 248.90, and they opened at 226 and change. So about 20, and they're still down.
So when you're looking, and Josh bringing that up, that's they are the plane, right? They're actually the manufacturer of who makes that model. And so, it adds even more, it adds even more value to the fact that, that's who's going to lose their reputation is the plane manufacturer more so than the actual airline, so, but what I was going to say is you're dealing with really big companies here, right? They're traded publicly, and so, their rebounds and their the way that their financial outlooks are a lot different than, a medium to small size business that's doing business. They can't afford that 8% drop, like an 8% drop for Alaska Airlines, although it's a big hit. Could you imagine if somebody was, only making $1 million a year and took an 8% drop? That's a little bit more of a higher stake game there at that point.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting is that, especially for the Alaskan Airlines, it's really outside their control. And this is something that we talked about a lot last year. And this is where they're going with this whole supply chain risk management idea that we talked about. There's things outside of your control, like the plane manufacturer is part of an airline supply chain. They actually give them the planes that they use to fly. And how do you plan for when there's a problem with a plane and the FAA tells you can't use that plane? How are you going to reorganize your flights? How are you going to get people where they need to go without having to refund all the tickets? And that's where you get into this pre-planning that we're constantly preaching, because you don't want to be making that plan up on the fly. You want to already have, maybe not the, you're not going to be, so specific to have the flight reroutes already done, but at least who's doing the work, who's making the decisions, what kinds of alternatives are you looking at?
You need to be prepared for your doors falling off of your planes at 16,000 feet. That's what Josh is trying to say.
You got to be prepared.
Yourselves. You got to have a plan in place that gets implemented as soon as that happens.
And
Because
people think I'm crazy. I leave my seatbelt on the whole time I'm on the flight.
that's a good idea, because
I'm not getting
obviously
sucked out the window.
oh, Jesus. I'm not laughing, because I'm happy that nobody got hurt. And in fact, I was going to say, Marie was just on Alaska Airlines, my wife, a few months ago when she went to Alaska. That's who she flew with. So it's it hits a little close to home, just because, who goes to Alaska, and the one person I know was on that airline. So it's kind of crazy. But yeah, I mean, you need to be prepared, as Josh was stating. It's you need to be ready for and the client said this today too, which I was really, it's pretty amazing sometimes. They said it's inevitable that something will happen, and we need to be prepared, and that something is inevitable. That at some point something will happen where we need to utilize the planning and policies that we're putting into place. Did you get that, Josh? That was a great.
I did. I heard him say that. I mean, it's Murphy's Law, but it's true. And there's, the old adage, I know with the NIST and the government stuff, a lot of military guys, right? Failing to prepare is preparing to fail, right? It's all about preparation.
Yeah.
But it's like
preparing for the worst,
preparing for the worst. But it's also like I told him, when you come up with when you have these plans, when you've thought through your supply chain risk, you've thought through your business risk, and you figured out what your biggest risks are, and that's what you're protecting, when the inevitable happens, it's not necessarily going to be that you're going to have the worst impact out of it. You're going to get the worst outcome. Because if you've been preparing and you're ready to respond, you can in cybersecurity, they call it the kill chain, right? Where you detect an incident, an intrusion, a negative event early, and you stop it. And then you don't have all the negativity. This last year, really the last 2 years, have been the years of the government, in particular, SEC, DHS, DOD, Health and Human Services through HIPAA, have really been pushing for disclosure of incidents. That when you have an incident, you have to tell people. You got to tell your shareholders. You got to tell your customers that you've lost their banking information and they need to get identity monitoring services. It's really a push the last couple of years for transparency on that. If you've prepared, you can nip something early, then your disclosure is, we detected an incident at 12:04 a.m. We stopped it at 12:08 a.m. and nobody's information was compromised. And then you've met your disclosure requirements under all these new disclosure frameworks. But you also have that opportunity. That's a win, right? We're always thinking like negative, like, oh, I have to disclose that somebody hacked me. No, you get to disclose now and nothing happened. You can trust me with your data because I've just proven that I can keep it safe when somebody comes and attacks me. So that's an opportunity, I think, that I haven't seen in the last couple of years, people spinning it that way. I think it's a missed opportunity. Of course, people aren't really bat 1,000 on it either, so that's
right.
part of it.
Yeah. But you're right, man. Awareness, and I know everybody's always talking about the doom and gloom of everything, but I've also recognized the awareness factor, and I know, I'm not one to to want the government involved in everything, but when it comes to especially critical infrastructure, I do believe they play a significant role in that in protecting us. And so CISA has been really instrumental, I think, in bringing a lot of these things to the forefront. They have all types of tools and checklists and things of that nature that can help you get to where you need to be when it comes to protecting yourself and your business and your customers. So I don't think it's all doom and gloom. I think it's been getting better. I think within the last, like you said, Josh, within the last 2 years, the awareness factor, I mean, just for instance, I mean, to go back to our conversation today with a client, I mean, for someone to say that it's inevitable, that was not something I heard 5 years ago. 5 years ago, it was like, well, why would anybody ever want to attack us, or send ransomware our way? Like, we're not, we're nothing. But in this case, it was like, they understood. They have enough, there's enough awareness out there now that it has become, excuse me, guys, something that is, something that's on their mind and that's important to them. And so, again, yeah, I think the awareness has stepped up, and people are starting to recognize that it's a huge part of their business and moving forward in this day and age.
Yeah, I think the push for transparency we've seen in the last year is really a good thing. And then even, and again, some of this is coming from the federal because industries aren't doing it themselves, but these push for transparency in software, transparency in security outcomes, and some standardization, I think is really a good thing.
Yep. Utilizing open source, keeping things segregated, keeping different, processes separated and segregated away from each other, so that, if something happens, things aren't all in one place and they're not able, segregation of networks, things like that, where, maybe they do get in, but they can't get to the crown jewels,
Exactly. And I think more companies are realizing what their crown jewels really are. And every organization, needs to spend some time working that out. We've had several podcasts about organizational buy-in, risk management. But I think it's progress, because it's moving towards this idea that things are going to happen, but that doesn't need to mean that there's a disaster, that it's not that it's not bad, that it's not the worst thing. Like when you drive your car and you hit a curb, right? Maybe you damage your bumper, right? Like that's bad. That's not good. But everyone in the car is okay, right? We have a standard with the national, what is it? It's the National Transportation Board, I think. National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, that gives cars their safety rating. So okay, if I'm in a god-awful accident, God forbid, knocking on wood here, I'm going to be safe because, I'm the most important, me and my family are the most important things in the vehicle. Stuff in the vehicle is replaceable. So I think as we move towards, these pushes for transparency, pushes for some standardization and reporting, I think you can move the needle on that idea that just because there's a cyber incident and that's bad doesn't mean that it has to be the worst outcome.
One other thing I want to talk about that we talked about a lot over the course of the year on our podcast is business processes and looking at the organization and making sure the processes and procedures are in place so that you can plan and prevent incidents. I was doing some reading and I saw a good quote that made me think about this, and Josh, if you want to kind of respond to this first, and then we'll let Jose respond to it after. What I read was this idea that we have been saying for many years that humans are the weakest link. People are the weakest link. But is it time to potentially change that narrative to say humans are the weakest link because of the organization, because the organization does not have the necessary culture around doing what's needed to be done to have the processes and procedures in place to train the people on the processes and procedures and why they're doing it the way they're doing it, to then potentially prevent big-time incidents? Is it potentially that the organizations are the weakest link, which cause us to be saying that humans are the weakest link? Does that make sense what I'm saying there, Josh?
So it does, and I'll just take that football and run with it. I kind of see where they're going with that, but I have some problems with that statement. So yes, legally, corporations are people in a court of law, but organizations, they're made up of people, right? Corporate culture is made up of people. So I don't think there's really a meaningfully distinction to say, oh, well, corporate culture is, I'm not the weakest link. It's my corporate culture that's the weakest link. All right, but who makes corporate culture? Like you and your peers, and then who's responsible for whether it's bad, good, correcting it? Your boss. Again, still a person. I know people want to put AI in the CEO chair of their organization, but we're not there yet. It's still a person. So I think at the end of the day, it still really is people. Maybe a useful discussion could be about which people. Had a client conversation today, and the client was concerned. We were talking about some policy implementations, and they were like, well, I've been at some organizations where a policy gets written, a policy gets stated, and then people don't follow the policy. And the bosses don't follow the policy. And then you got a boss who doesn't follow a policy trying to hold an underling accountable to the policy. Those are all people problems, right? It's still people. The one part that I do agree with that statement is I have worked with organizations where the people that I talk to in the organization are on board with what needs to be done for good security, with what needs to be done for good risk management and proper resource allocation, all those wonderful things. And then the organization doesn't move forward. But again, there's a decision maker in the organization that's the roadblock. There's usually somebody higher up the food chain, because every company has food chains, a little bit higher up the food chain, that they don't have the buy-in. And so they say, well, we're not going to do this. Right. And then it is not the organization that's the problem, right? It's that business leader who doesn't have, we don't have the right buy-in from them. So projects fail. And we've talked about that a lot over the last year. But just to wrap things up, I know we've been going for a little while now. I think it's been a lot of progress as an industry in cybersecurity and information security, really moving the needle on getting business leaders aware of risk, aware of their reputational risks, and moving towards a more transparent information sharing model. I think this has been a very good year, and I'm looking forward to what's going to come out over the next year.
And there's so much to look forward to.
There's so much
guys.
to look forward to. We're going to do another episode on what to look forward to in the upcoming year.
That's right. Yeah, I had to get in the car. I had to go pick up my my son. So I apologize if I lost you guys while I was talking there. But yeah, we got lots to look forward to. And 2024 is going to be a good year. I can feel it.
Any closing remarks, Sid?
2023 is closed.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, guys. Happy New Year, all of our
Right.
listeners. It's going to be a great year.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the SureTech Podcast, The Three Hacketeers. If you found value in what you listened to today, please give us a like. Do follow us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. In the description, there will be a link tree that will take you to our social media pages, and you can keep up with us on your favorite social media platform. If you'd like to get in touch with us here at SureTech, please email us at info@sure-technologies.com, which is also in the description. Thanks again, and see you on the next one.